We're back again. It's another amplifier. This time it's the new Helix V8 DSP Ultimate. I think I've got that in the right order. This is the all-in-one 8-channel amplifier offering from Helix. Last week we had a look at the Arc Audio, and hopefully next week or at some point very soon we'll have a look at the Audison one as well. It's no secret, if you've watched any of my videos before, I'm a Helix fan user. I don't know what the correct term would be, but I use their products a lot. So I'll try not to bias this by the fact that I do use them a lot, and I'll just try and give a kind of fairly unbiased and realistic opinion of everything that I find. Before we delve too much into this one, I just want to grab the Arc Audio amp again, because I had an interesting call with Arc Audio, a guy called Fred, on Wednesday, and we ran through a few things. I said in the previous video I didn't think there was any lights. There are, they're just there, very small underneath the power inputs. That's how you can tell if it's on or not. You've also got some clipping lights here next to the speaker outputs. One of the other things I didn't say is, yes, this is an 8-channel amplifier with 4 additional DSP controlled channels, but it only handles 8 channels in as well. So 8 high level in. That's important these days with cars that don't necessarily have a module. Like in one of the videos before you've seen, I've used for the Jaguar and the BMW an Ethernet, or you can get most fiber optic breakout boxes that give us a digital signal that comes into this little coax port. For cars that don't have that, like a new Range Rover that I've got in a couple of weeks, we have to use all of the speaker channels that come out of the Meridian amplifier in that case and put those into an amplifier like this or the Helix, and then de-equalize and kind of clean those up. This has only got 8 channels input. On that Range Rover that I've got to do, I need 12. So unfortunately, in this instance, this Arc Audio amp wouldn't be able to handle all of that. I've also spent more time looking at the DSP software, so I'm going to do another video just kind of going over what I've learned since that initial video, because it's extremely powerful software. It's actually got some really nice features that the Helix software doesn't have that I wish that did have. There's never a perfect product. There's never one amp and one software that will just do everything. If there was, that amp would be the only one that everyone used. So each amplifier's got little perks of using that amplifier, shall we say, whether it's a control knob that handles it or something in the software that does. But then this has got another perk that this one does really well, and the Audison's got a perk that does really well. So I'll try and cover what all of those different things are. But yeah, so a slight bit of a downside, only 8 channels of input. I think they're going to come out with a bigger one that's got more channels of input. Back to the Helix, and I'll lean it up because I've actually got all the details on the back of the box of this one. So 8 channels of output. The output configuration is channels 1 to 4 give you up to 110 watts at 4 ohms. Channels 5 to 8 will also give you that power, but you can also run those to 2 ohm speakers. And at 2 ohms, they'll run up to 220 watts. So big jump up in power from both the last Helix V8 that was, I think, 75 watts per channel, and also up on the Arc Audio amp that was, I'll put it on the screen, I think it was 75 or 80 watts per channel. So yeah, 110 watts for 1 to 4 and 220 watts for 5 to 8. So that makes that a great solution, again, for BMWs where the underseats are typically 2 ohm, Mercedes where the speakers in the firewall are typically 2 ohm. You don't normally get 2 ohm 6.5 inches. So for speakers that go into the front doors, this is then only running those at 110. I think it says up to 140 watts. That might sound confusing. All the specs will be on the website, but basically different speakers will pull different powers. So if you've got a tweeter and you're sending it 110 watts from this, it's not really pulling 110 watts from the amplifier. So this amplifier and most amplifiers will kind of be a bit clever with how they're assigning that power. So if a tweeter only needs 10, 15, 20 watts, it can then use the kind of shortfall on power from that channel to help another speaker out a little bit. But yeah, up to 220 watts at 2 ohms, so it should really kick those underseat drivers in a BMW and the firewall speakers in a Mercedes, for instance. This is a 14-channel DSP, so you've got the 8 amplified channels, and then you've got 6 additional channels of DSP output. The Arc Audio only had 4 channels, but for most systems, that's going to be sufficient. This, you could run an even bigger system because you've got 6 additional speakers, so you could run mid bass is often a higher power amplifier, a front sub, a rear sub, and then who knows what else. You could go for a crazy, massively amplified center speaker or rear satellite speakers or something like that. But yeah, very versatile amp. 12 channels high level input, 16 channels overall output, 8 of those being amplified. This is kind of looking like this is going to be Helix's go-to amplifier. Audison have obviously got their M814s. That's also 14 channels of DSP power, 8 channels of amplification, and they do 12 channels of high level input as well. So very similar to this. This is 1149 retail, I believe. So yeah, very, very compelling package. Any other specs of this? Obviously it does optical input. So your SP-DIF connection from like the Ethernet breakout box. This also, actually one feature of this that's quite new is it's got something they call USB perfect stream, starting to get a bit like Apple where they put their own little taglines on things. Basically, you can plug a USB-C into this, that same USB cable into your phone, and then you can stream music direct from your phone into the amplifier without the need of a high-res Bluetooth player, for instance, or without the need of going through your head unit and then into the amplifier, either high level or one of those optical converters. So it'll be interesting to see how that works, if I can hear any difference and if that's going to be beneficial in any setups at all, really. But it's nice that you can do that now. One thing I noticed, the frequency response. So this is the similar or the same frequency response, I think, as the previous V8. So it's not like they've gone backwards. But when they put Ultimate in the title, I was kind of hoping that they would just do a tiny bit more. So the frequency response on this is 15 Hertz, that's your sub bass, to 22,000 Hertz, which is your high range tweeters. The Arc Audio, the frequency response was up to 30,000. The Audison is up to 40 or 44,000, which is what gives it the high res badge. For high res fans, this amplifier doesn't give a high res output. And I actually asked Helix as well if that meant that let's say you wanted to hook up a high-res amplifier to run mids and tweeters, like the Helix C4, for instance, which is a big AB class high-res amp. Would you then benefit from that high-res output? And unfortunately, the DSP chip in this isn't capable of processing the high-res. So even if you hooked up a C4 to this, you're only going to be getting up to 22,000 Hertz still. Whether or not you're going to hear that or whether that's a deal breaker, I don't know yet. We haven't plugged it in and played with it. But yeah, it's just a shame that you can't use this then as that ultimate go-to solution. If you really want those high-res speakers and to benefit from the quality that a C4 will give you, you'd need to go for something like the DSP Pro Mark III or the DSP Ultra S, which are the standalone DSPs, and then multiple amplifiers after that. I think that's most of the specs on it. One other nice thing with the Helix product as well is you've got a upgrade port, so you can then fit additional high-level inputs. So you could have actually up to 14 channels of high-level input. Gives you another auxiliary input if you want to, if you wanted to use anything like that. So you've got a 3.5mm jack connection if you needed it. You can also put a high-res Bluetooth card inside this, so it saves the need of having to have that auxiliary high-res player. You can then just Bluetooth high-res music straight to this, and then you can control it a little bit better from the conductor as well. And no doubt they'll come up with other expansion cards that will go inside this amplifier. At the moment, there's only the 2 because it's quite a new amplifier. Being a new amplifier as well, this actually uses the new Helix PC Tool 6, which I've got on my computer, but I've never used before. So I'll do the same as with the Arc software. I'll show you the quick way that you download it, plug the amp in for the first time. I haven't had this plugged in at all yet, so we'll see how it handles any firmware updates. I'll be able to plug this into the conductor in my car as well, so you should be able to see it asking to upgrade the firmware on the amplifier and the conductor. And my experience of the Helix products is it's all pretty seamless and straightforward anyway. Let's get it unboxed. I'll show you what comes inside it, and then we'll get it in the car. Now, it's worth saying, and I said it with the Arc Audio product, that obviously the money you're spending, you'd rather it go into the quality of the amplifier, but at the same time, if you're spending £1,000 plus, it's nice that the box feels nice. And this is a high quality box, nice thick cardboard, nice kind of shiny printing on it. Yeah, it feels like you've spent over £1,000 on an amplifier. Nice little snug fit. I'd already cut the sellotape because I've had this out to have a quick look at it. And I've taken the amplifier out of the plastic packaging that it comes in, but there's the instructions for it as well, which can all be found online. That's your amplifier. and in this little side section are the cables and accessories that it comes with. So let's just pop that back closed again. I think I'm going to need to tip this out just to get the amplifier out. And that's the Helix V8 DSP Ultimate. Same finish across the other V amplifiers that they do. So you've got the V8, the V12 and the V16. They've all got this kind of brushed metal finish to them. Looks very high quality. And then the name of the amplifier is just kind of embossed and indented in there in a different texture. So looks really nice. Heatsink on either side. And this is one of the downsides that I was saying about, is you've got inputs or outputs on both sides. So you need to account for that when you're mounting it. Obviously the Arc Audio and the Audison, they've just got them on one side. If we just do a size comparison, if I just leave that there and get the Arc Audio amp. So that's the Arc Audio. A little bit wider, let's get them both in shot. Yeah, it's a bit wider, but then it's thinner. Depth-wise, I'm not going to move the camera, but the Arc Audio is about 5mm deeper, I'd say. So yeah, probably similar overall mass, it's just in a different shape, so it depends what you need for your installation. One massive down point of these Helix amplifiers, and they haven't fixed it, is the mounting holes are an absolute pain in the bum. If I just grab a screwdriver to show you. This is my go-to screwdriver. So you've got the bits that come in and out. So you'd have your nice, either a kind of, I've got an Allen bit in there, but if you have your Torx bit or your Posi crosshead bit, whatever you're using, to put the screw in, the screw seats, I don't know, I think it's on the very bottom one. It's got in the heatsink, so the bottom hole is smaller, so the head of the bolt or screw would obviously sit in there. And actually, maybe they have changed it slightly. No, so the screw is going to sit on this third heatsink, which means you've got to get your screwdriver through the top two heatsinks. Oh, they have changed it, so it is a slightly larger hole. There was me complaining. The other one, you couldn't get your screwdriver through that hole. In fact, I might try and find another V8 and see if they have changed it, but that's great. Okay, ignore what I said. If you're getting the old V8, that's still the case, but the new V8, it seems that you can get your screwdriver in there to do it up. Okay, that's a plus point. What else are we looking at here then? So on this side of the amplifier, you've got your USB-C. Nice to see that they've moved over to a modern USB connection instead of the old USB mini or micro, whatever it was they used. The SCP connection, all of their amps are going over to this. I think there's just a couple of legacy amps. Actually, the V8 was one of them that used the old DIN style plug to connect the conductor or the director. They've changed the orientation of it just because they've got a lot to fit on this panel. But yeah, that's good. They're moving over to this. A little control button. If you don't have either of those plugged in, you can just press this to change the presets. But it means obviously going into the boot, but there is a way of doing it. That's your expansion port, optical input, low-level line input. There's only 6 of those. And then your high-level input. So this is where you've got channels 1 to 6 and now 7 to 12. So that's going to make this very flexible amplifier with all kinds of factory systems that have got up to 12 channels of input. There's your remote inputs. I think that's remote out. So little plug there, so you can then feed this into your sub amp or your auxiliary amps that you're using, and then the DSP turns those on. I presume the remote in, yeah, there we go. So remote in is on this side. Old school kind of connector for the power. Again, they take 4 gauges. Line outputs, this is, I'll show you that in a minute, but this is where you've got then your 6 channels of DSP controlled output. So there's a fly lead that goes to RCA cables. Speaker outputs, so they've got channels 1 to 4, which are your 110 watts per channel on a fly lead. And then channels 5 to 8, which are your up to 220 watts on screw connections. I'm not too sure on the logic of that because one connection is very much as good as another. The old amplifier had all 8 as this style, and it's a bit of a slow way of doing it. I guess it's half 6 of one, half dozen of the other, I guess, but you've got to ferrule the connections and put them in, screw them all in individually, whereas this one, I guess you've got to solder them all onto the fly lead. So Bit messy that they've got two different styles of doing it. I'm not too sure why they didn't just go to all 8 speakers on the fly lead outputs. Probably would have given them some more real estate here to do something else with, or to move one of those ports over the other side, because the other side is a little bit busy. But there we go. Plenty of flexibility. That's the bottom of it. Just got my fingerprints all over it. But Helix DSP, it's very hot in here today, even though I've got the aircon running. Heat sinks on both sides. Let's get it in the car. That's enough looking at it. Oh, let's have a quick look at the accessories, because that is then the 4 channels of fly lead output. This is the 6 channels of DSP controlled output. So then you've got these metal RCA outputs on. And they could probably bang together a little bit. I don't know how neat that will end up being in an installation. The M4 and the M6 DSP have got similar to these, although they've updated the plugs on these to look a little bit higher quality. But they're a bit annoying sometimes to try and make look nice on an amp board, or to wrap them all up. Nice to see, unlike the Arc Audio, which I think is a simple fix for them, but all the different wires have got heat shrink with the channels on them. So even these speaker wires, I think I showed in the video last week, you can easily see if you've got it Tessa taped up to here, you can then easily see which speaker wire you're connecting to. These will then be your high level inputs. So there's 2 of those, because obviously there was channels 1 to 6 and then 7 through to 12. USB-C, quite a nice high quality braided cable with USB-C on either end, so that you can go to your amplifier. And then, so this is the tuning wire as well, actually. So you would obviously plug that into the amplifier, plug that into your laptop. I've got a new Mac, so I have got USB-C, but if you haven't got USB-C, they also give you a USB-C to USB-A adapter. So that's good to see as well. It says Audiotec Fischer on there, quite nice, high quality stuff. I know, again, it doesn't matter, but when you're spending over £1,000, it's just nice to get some nice cables. These say Audiotec Fischer on them as well, so they've had these made up especially for them. And then these are your bolts, and they come with some Allen keys that we normally just chuck in the bin, because our tools are slightly better than that anyway. Right, let's get this in the car, see what it sounds like, because that's the important bit. Right, what a mess. Slightly more messy than when the Arc Audio one was in there. I took the sub back out again and actually kind of brought these pigtails through. So then when I do the Audison, I don't need to take the sub back out. Although, because I put inserts in, and it's not just self-tapped into NDF, I can take these bolts in and out as many times as I want. It's not going to degrade the wood. So little plug for the way that we do our subwoofers there. I remembered why I don't like all the RCAs on these fly lead outputs, because if you're only using a subwoofer output, which I'm going to at the moment, you only need 1 of these, channel 9. You've then got 5 of them in this instance hanging around doing nothing. What would have been nice, I think, is if they hadn't have used these screw terminals for the speaker outputs of channels 5 to 8, if they'd used a fly lead, maybe they could have orientated everything on this side of the amp the other way round, and then they could have had 2 or 4 pre-outs on the device, and then maybe a fly lead just for the extra 2 pre-outs. I don't know, maybe you could have got all 6 on there, and then you don't need this fly lead, because yeah, for a lot of installations, you're just gonna have to tape that up and leave it hanging somewhere, which is a bit annoying. So that's another downside of this. I said I'd be honest, I know Helix is my go-to, but when I don't like things, I'll say it. So at the moment, I haven't got anything plugged into the output side of the amplifier. I've got the power and remote in on this side, and I've got the optical, the USB, the remote out that's going to the sub amp, and the conductor. So I'll be able to play with my conductor again and change the volume of the sub. If I turn the ignition on, I should get some power to the amplifier. Right, so Bluetooth's off. I've plugged the USB into the laptop, although I might need to do it again because I did it before I had opened my Windows build on the laptop. So connect to Windows, allow. Yeah, I've already said that once. Why is it asking me twice? Okay, so it's connected to the laptop. Let me start the screen record as well. Just the size of that. Options. Let's do mouse clicks this time, so hopefully you can see where my pointer is, and I'm also going to record audio on the laptop this time because it will be easier to sync up and record. Okay, so I've already got the DSP Tool 6 software on here. It's a public beta, whatever you call it, at the moment. Obviously, if you go to Audiotec Fischer's website, go to Tools, PC Tool 6, scroll to the bottom, they're on version 0.1.5. They're slowly adding more and more devices to it at the moment. As of right now, 18th of July 2025, these are the devices that they support. They say that during the rest of July, they'll have all of their amplifiers, so the match lineup as well will be supported with the new PC Tool 6. There are some features, key one that I'm waiting for, that I've kind of been hoping they'd do for a while, which they said they're doing in this software, but it's not enabled at the moment. But the public beta, there might be a few bugs on this one. For instance, they've said bug fix, resolve an issue when enabling subwoofer volume control. So until it's a final version, obviously there might be a few bugs, but there we go. I've already got that downloaded. So I will open the software here, and this is the first time I'm connecting to this amp. So this is typical with the Helix products. We saw it on the Arc one as well, that they ship out the factory with a version of the firmware on. Typically by the time that people connect them to the laptop, and the software has been updated, there's then a firmware update to do to the laptop as well, to the amplifier as well, sorry. So if we say OK, OK, they call it their ACO system. Allow, it always disconnects and then reconnects, and so you get these USB prompts. Update running, update successful. Allow. Would you like to restart the DSP PC tool? Yes. Let's just minimize this window. So now the conductor firmware is not up to date. I hope this doesn't give me an issue when then I eventually plug it back into my normal DSP, but let's update the conductor. Update successful. If I just stand up and look at the lights on my conductor, I can see that that's lit up. Conductor firmware update was successful. Okay, so it's starting the software again, and now I should be able to connect to the amplifier. So it shows you what amplifier you're connected to. Obviously, this is where you click connect, and that then connects you to the software and the amplifier. Up here, you've got some options. So if it hasn't connected to it, sometimes it comes up saying demo around here. You can click refresh up here. There's settings. I'm not going to click on all these now. So yeah, that's more to do with like the software, how it runs on the laptop, whether it's a low or high resolution. The connection mode, obviously we're using USB, but you can use a Wi-Fi card or Bluetooth connection as well. Let's just jump straight into the software. So this has changed. Oh, there's another firmware update. Look at that, wrong software version. Do you want to update? Yes. Not too sure what that's for, but let's try it again. Updating firmware, closed, opening, connect. Okay, here we go. So this is quite a familiar setup. So take how I'm receiving this software with a pinch of salt compared to the Arc software. That Arc software was the very first time I'd seen it. And like I said, I will make another video on that Arc software. Talking of another video, if you're not subscribed to the channel and you're watching this, take 5 seconds and just click subscribed if you like the content that we're making. Give us a thumbs up. It just helps other people find the video, and it gets suggested to more people the more people are liking and subscribing. So thank you very much for that. The last video that we did got about 1,000 views, which I know doesn't sound much, but for a little channel like ours with a long boring video going in depth on new DSP software, I was quite happy with the response to that. So thank you. I hope you like this video as well. They've changed the layout of this slightly to DSP PC Tool 5, so it's not going to be the most straightforward for me, but they've made things a little bit easier to find with these tabs, and they've done it in now the order that you will set the amplifier up. So typically with the input, we're not going to do much on this page because I'm using a digital input, so there isn't much I need to do to the signal. But if you were using a high or low level input and you weren't sure whether there was bass roll off, treble roll off, a phase flip at some point in the frequency response, this is where you would fix all of that. And just like I'm going to do a more in-depth video on the ARC software, I'll do a video with the Helix software where it's hooked up to a head unit and we've got to play around with the EQ a little bit more. One massive benefit of this, a benefit in terms of usability, is that you've got a visual EQ. So when you start playing pink noise on the system, you can see what it's doing on this screen and in the software. The ARC software does not have that. I'll go into more details as to why it doesn't have that, or to ARC's explanation as to why it doesn't have that in the other video, but there is a reason behind it. And we'll see if we can hear the difference when we listen to this amplifier. So we're not going to do much on this page, but this is a great kind of tool for if you're going into an OEM system, a Kia, a Hyundai, or anything that you're having to de-equalize the system. You can see it in here. There's automated tools that you can just hit. Where is it? You basically start the analyzer and then you hit here, tune EQ. And it will flatten it for you, or you can manually do it by putting these pips up and down and changing the Q, which is the wideness or the range of that frequency that you're adjusting. In here as well, you've got then like a sub menu. It's a little bit hard to see, so I guess when you're used to the software a bit more, but just under these main tabs, you've then got equalization, time alignment. That's time alignment on the input side, not the output side. So again, if you've got time delayed bass or time delayed kind of passenger side versus driver's side, this is where you would fix that, because what you want coming into this DSP is a clean signal where left and right are balanced and in time in terms of they're the same time. You don't want to have to be doing your output equalization when you haven't got your input side nice and flat. Dynamic loudness control, so that's if a system has got bass roll off, for instance. So the more you turn the volume up on a factory head unit, it might roll the bass off to protect cheap door speakers, for instance. And then when you're upgrading the speakers or adding subwoofers, you don't want it to do that, so you can compensate for any bass roll off at this part of the software. And gain configuration, again, we don't need to do that because we're just using a digital input, but that's where you would sort this out. Signal management, this I'm more familiar with. The ARC software foxed me a little bit until I found that nice visual version of it. But here, we want the digital to virtual. So this is basically saying that digital left and digital right. Digital left goes to front left full, digital right goes to front right full. Again, digital left, rear left full, digital right, rear right full. I'm not using any front center, so I'm going to just 2-finger click to remove it. I'm not using their rear fill algorithm, so I'm going to 2-finger click to remove it. I am going to be using subwoofer 1. I'm not going to be using subwoofer 2, so I 2-finger click to remove it. So I like to leave this page as clean as possible personally, just so it's easier to see what's going on. If you were doing a high or low level system where you're integrating to the factory head unit or amplifier, this is when, again, you can drag these input 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down the side, 7, 8, 9. Actually, you've got this scroll bar here because, like we said, this is a 12-channel input. So you can take all of these inputs, drag them onto here. It's already full. So if we just remove that, for instance, and remove that, because I don't mind removing these because I'm not using this. So I'll just do it as a demonstration. So here, if channel 1 coming out of your factory amplifier, you would then drag it to here. So that's going to your tweeters, for instance, and you can name all of these. I'm pretty sure, yeah, here you go, you drop these down. So if then you want to call this something else, you can change all of that. But then you would drag that one to here, channel 3 to there, channel 4 to there. For a subwoofer, for instance, you might want a mix of channels 1 and 2, so you'd put those both on the same timeline. And you see at the moment this says 100%. As soon as I release the mouse, that then automatically changes those to 50% each. And then that's going to send a left and right signal, overall 100% obviously, to your subwoofer. These are the virtual channels. So this is just basically sending it from the input side into the virtual channels, which is essentially like the brains of the DSP. Let's look at it that way. Then you want to take your virtual channels and assign those, or make sure they're assigned correctly to your output channels, which are these. And this is where maybe it's a bit more important to name the outputs a little bit more at this point so you don't start getting confused. I've done something a bit silly maybe, but it'll be interesting, or at least I can show you how I'm doing it. But where in the last video I said typically you'll have channels 1 and 2 as your left-right tweeter, 3 and 4 as your left-right mid, 5 and 6 as your left-right mid bass, and 7 and 8 as your rear left and right. Just because of the length of my cables over here, I've mucked around a little bit. And I've got channels 1 and 2 as my tweeter, but then 3 and 4 as my rears, because they're on this long fly lead and I can reach them down to this corner of the boot. So what I want to do, so I don't then get confused, is amp out 1. I'm going to change this to front left high, which is high level. It can then give you a pop-up and say, do you want to load the presets for the preset filters for this channel so you don't blow anything up? I'm going to click remember my choice. I'm going to click yes. Front right high, that's already actually on front right high, but if I click it again, that's going to change those filters. Amp out 3 is preset to front left mid, which is, like I say, what I'd normally have. But actually in this setup, this is going to be my rear left full. In fact, I'm going to put rear left high just to protect it, and we'll change the crossover later. So rear left high, channel 4 is rear right high. Where is it? Rear right high. Channel 5 is then, that's correct, front left low. Channel 6 is front right low, but then channel 7 is my front left mid, and channel 8, getting confused because I'm looking at the wrong thing. Channel 8 is my front right mid. So let's just go back and check that. Front left high, front right high, front left mid, front right mid, front left low, rear, front right low, rear left high, rear right high. So we've got all of the 8 channels assigned, and then I want subwoofer. So subwoofer is going to subwoofer 1, and I'm just going to delete subwoofer 2 so we don't get confused. In terms of the channels then, so these are the virtual channels. So I've got front left, front right. I then want to delete those, and that is rear left full and rear right full, fronts, and then these are fronts as well. So let's move that and that. So that was quite quick, and that again shows you how familiar I am with the software. But basically down this column, the virtual inputs, this is where you drag your inputs onto this section. This is then assigning which of those inputs you want going to which of the outputs, and you can change all of those names to then that will show you then later in the software on the output side. That's where those names come in handy. But yeah, very configurable. You can drag and drop. If you want to do your differential rear fill, this is where you do it on this page, because you would then take your other rear left channel, or let's go rear right first, and put that next to there. If you don't understand differential rear fill, I'll explain it, but this is how you do it on this page. And then so for the left, I'd want to double click that, invert the polarity. And for this one, I want to double click that and invert the polarity. So nice and simple. You can do it with the digital channels. You can't do that at the moment with the ARC software in this way. I was talking to Fred about a workaround, or he was looking at a workaround because he thought it would work. I kind of showed him that it doesn't work with the digital inputs anyway. But yeah, very nice and easy to use, or well, I say easy. I've used this multiple times, but it's as it was in the last one, in the last version of the software. Source configuration, you've got this button up the top. So input source mode, this is what I'm waiting for. And if I hover over setup switch, it says coming soon. So this is where, if I've got it set up to be playing from the high level input, so any factory system, it's the high levels coming into here, that's its main source of input. And you would have then an equalization, you'd have a controller or a conductor setup, so that maybe the first screen on the conductor is bass control. Then you've got a BT streamer plugged into it as well, and you then on your phone select for the Bluetooth to go to the BT streamer, which activates the optical input. What this will do with setup switch is when it sees the optical input, not only will it switch over it will cut off the high level music and start playing the optical music, You can also then ask it to load a different preset. So you can then have a preset that has a different equalization for the fact that the sound coming from the optical is going to be a nice flat response. The sound coming from your high level input is probably a messy response that you've had to muck around with and get to sound as nice as possible. But then you can load the other preset, have a preset that's just a normal flat response for the digital inputs, has then got a different output equalization and has also then got a different conductor setup, so that maybe your first screen or your first option on the conductor is then overall master volume, so you can change the master volume of your Bluetooth input, and then you would press the conductor once to then have your sub level. So that would be a great thing when that is live, but it isn't live at the moment. Input source priority, don't know what real term use that's going to have, because you could kind of do that on the old one, but here you can drag which is the main input, if or the digital input, you can move that down a bit, or the USB input as more priority than something else. It's just a different layout compared to they previously had. We're not using extra inputs, but if you did have, this is the HEC aux input, so like with the expansion port, you can then have different inputs coming into it. Main input global priority. So this is if you're using a digital input and then the parking sensors cut in or the phone calls, you want it to then go back to the head unit. You can set the sensitivity of the volume level and how long it will take to release that back to then digital music. Digital input sensitivity, again, you can set which, if you're listening to high level input, at what volume level you want the digital input to cut in. Virtual, this is, I don't do a lot in this until after I've EQ'd the system, and then I tend to come back to this page and do a bit more of a global EQ, just to change the tone of the whole sound, just to change the whole tone of the system. If you want to take out a little bit of mid or take out something around 5K that might be a bit harsh on the ears, you can do that here without affecting the phase of the rest of the equalization that you've done. And again, you can also timeline in the virtual domain. Gets a bit confusing because you've got the input side, you've got the virtual, and then you've got the output side. FX, that's bass enhancement, and you've got center processing here. I don't tend to use a lot of this day to day when I'm tuning, but if you're running a center channel, you can run Helix's algorithm for the center so that it doesn't play all the information of a center, or basically it doesn't play exactly left and right. Plays some of that so that it doesn't sound like the sound's been pulled towards the center. I've done a really bad job of describing that, but I don't tend to use that day to day on my systems. Bass enhancement, I don't use an awful lot either, because I just tend to EQ it so that the bass sounds nice the whole time. Outputs, this is where, again, Helix, I think, is a hell of a lot easier to use than the ARC software, because it has a built-in RTA. You can use a microphone plugged into the laptop, EQ your system, do it all on this software, rather than having to go to REW and import it, or use a completely standalone RTA and look at the graphs and adjust the sliders on it. I'll go more into detail in this when I do a tuning video. But yeah, this is very familiar. Anyone that's seen videos of mine in the past, you'll have seen me working on this page. This as well, if you just look at my finger or look at the cursor, probably what's easier. This is where we named our channels before. So you've got front left high, front right high, back bit kind of backwards, but then I've got the rear left high and rear right high. But that means that when I'm tuning, I've got a reference of it here on the screen. I'm not going to get confused and tune these like they were my mids. Because that's picked up the changes that I made on that previous page, on that virtual or the signal management page, and now that's displaying those here. Front left low, front right low. This is where I'd then change or check that my crossovers were correct, so I can link these two channels, for instance, by ticking both those red boxes. And then if I want my tweeters coming in at 2500, hit return, that changes, oh, got a slide in from the left. That changes both left and right channels together. Same for the rears if I want to link those together, and I want those coming in at 160. Front right low, front left low. I'll put all these in off camera because I'm going to tune the system quickly, and then I'm going to go because it's 10 to 8. Mids, that's, yeah, all good. And subwoofer, I'm going to throw a quick tune onto this. Time alignment under here, you've got equalization and time alignment. This is then the output time alignment. Again, I'm going to copy my settings over from my previous setup just for speed and so I can get a quick listen to it on the way home. RTA, this is brilliant. This is the built-in RTA of Helix, very, very useful. Audison now has a built-in RTA as well that you can see what's going on when there's pink noise playing. The line is dancing around on here, and then you can ask it to tune it as closely as possible to your reference curve, basically, and it automatically applies that equalization to this equalization page. Very handy, very quick to tune, very powerful, capable software. That's why I really like it. It's the same software across all of their amps. So this is obviously their latest amp, the V8 DSP Ultimate, but this software works on their match amps from the Match Up 6, which is pretty much their entry-level amp, up to the Match Up 10, their 10-channel amp. Same looking software as well on the Brax, which is I think a £4,000 DSP, but all very familiar to use. So if you've tuned one amp with Helix, you can pretty much tune all of them. I'm going to stop this bit of the video now. I'm going to jump in the car, do a quick tune. I'm then going to drive home, and you probably will see me on camera in the car giving my opinion of what it sounds like. Right, I hope this is recording audio. I'm about the same place on the way home that I was last week when I recorded a video. So I've had about the same amount of time to listen to the amp. The difference is this time is that I didn't actually tune it. I just wanted to get on the road and get home. I live about an hour away from work and I was already far too late. So I'll tune it over the weekend. So I've just put the crossovers on, done the time alignment, and I've been listening to it fairly raw. Whereas the ARC one, I did actually do some EQ work, so maybe that's going to have an impact. Initial out-the-box impressions are another nice sounding amp. Well done, Audiotec Fischer. I don't think it's as airy and revealing as the ARC Audio one was when I very first heard that. Again, I haven't tuned this, so maybe with a bit of EQ work you can bring up those highs. The one thing I have played with is, because I've got my conductor connected, you've got a global tone adjustment, and I've got that set to 8,000 hertz, and when you boost that a little bit, that does then lift the airiness and that kind of nice high-end clarity. Without hearing them back to back, it's so difficult, but it gets it into the ballpark of where I think the ARC was. Without hearing them back to back, it's hard to say, but with the ARC, I was definitely, like, as soon as I heard it, I was like, oh wow, that's a slightly different sound and a really nice sound. I'm not getting that immediately with the Helix, which isn't a surprise. The bandwidth of this amplifier only goes up to 22,000 hertz. The ARC one went up to 30,000 hertz, so maybe there's a little bit of higher resolution there that the ARC is catering for. Don't know. Need to listen to it a little bit more. Need to play with the EQ work, obviously, and see if I can get it a bit better, and then see if I can work out a quick way of plugging from one amp to the other so I can actually hear a proper back to back. Also, the mid-bass performance, on paper, it's 220 watts at 2 ohms, which my mid-basses are. And I'm very used to hearing those with the previous setup I've got, which is a Helix DSP Pro Mark III going into various Audison SR amplifiers, and the one that runs the underseats is also rated at about 220 or 240 watts, I think it is, at 2 ohms. This Helix V8 at 220 watts doesn't sound anywhere near as punchy as the Audison does. In fact, it probably sounds similar to where the ARC did at 120 or 125 watts. Again, I need to really sit down, play with the levels, see what the EQ or the RTA is telling me in terms of the level adjustment. But yeah, slightly disappointed with that off the bat. I kind of thought I'd plug it in and they'd be rumbling away and I'd have to be turning them down. But at the moment, I'm having to push the gains on the underseats just to get them to play to where I want to. Other than that, not a huge amount more I can say because I haven't EQ'd it. But yeah, it sounds really nice. It does sound detailed. Probably more detailed still than the previous setup I had, so maybe that's a slight reflection that those Audison SR amps aren't the most revealing, because that's both the ARC and this that I think are slightly higher kind of quality. So we'll have to have a play around with that. One big thing I didn't say in the video when I was unboxing it and explaining the specification was that you can't bridge this amp. So with the ARC and the Audison, you can bridge them. So if you just want to run a passive front end setup where your mids and tweeters are on one channel, or if you haven't got mids, you've just got tweeters, mid basses and rears, you can bridge the mid basses and give those a lot more power. On this you can't. You're stuck with the higher power at 2 ohms, or if it's a BMW underseat or the Mercedes 8-inch, where some brands, Audiotec, Fischer being one of those, they do their 8-inch speaker as a single voice coil 2 ohm, which is what I've got, but they also do it as a dual voice coil. I'm pretty sure it's a dual voice coil 4 ohm. Don't quote me on that. Or it might be a dual voice coil 2 ohm actually, because then you could run it as a 4 ohm or a 1 ohm. I'll put the stats on the screen. But if you wanted more power going to your mid bass in that setup, you'd need that dual voice coil one, and then you could connect both of the high power channels going to that mid bass. But then on paper that's going to be giving it 400 something watts, which is probably a bit excessive. So yeah, not as versatile in that regard. The ARC and the Audison you can bridge. The Helix, none of their amplifiers you can really bridge. Certainly not their DSP all-in-one amplifiers. That's it. I had a quick plug-in as well to the USB Perfect Stream. It did pick it up straight away and start playing from the phone. It was extremely low level. It sounded like it wasn't anywhere near as loud as the signal path that I've got going from my BMW head unit into the most fibre optic converter, then into the amplifier. That's a lot louder. So whether I need to play with the gains a little bit on that USB Perfect Stream, but I plugged it in, it worked. I couldn't immediately hear it that it was massively high res. I mean, I'm already going through a fibre optic signal from the BMW, so I would hope, and it sounds like it's already fairly good signal. Thank you very much for watching. I'll do another catch up on this amplifier later in the week. Whether or not it's going to be the end of next week, I'm not sure. I've got a busier week next week, and I still need to go about getting the Audison amp so I can test all three of them. Because I think, even though I don't use the Audison much, it's important to get it in, remind myself of how it all works, what it sounds like, and give it a fair assessment against these other two, because it is in the ballpark of ones you'd be thinking of if you wanted to spend £1,000 to £1,400 on an amplifier. That would definitely be a contender. Thanks for watching. I'm Nathan. This is Cambridge Autosound. It's 9:26 and I'm late for my dinner.